All right, welcome guys. Today I'm here with my friend Chris Jensen from Let's Talk Mortgage. A lot of you guys had questions about what you've seen in the news, the mortgage rates going down, and is it now a right time to buy? Is it a right time to get a mortgage? So instead of giving you my 2 cents on the market, I bring in the expert. He's going to talk about the current market condition. So Chris, first of all, thank you for having us, man.
Bienvenue. Let's talk mortgages. That's as much French as I know. Almost.
That's perfect. So, the big question, it's all over the news. Everybody is talking about the rates going down. I know that sometimes between the news and what's really happening in the market, there is, a little lag here. So, can you tell us a bit more about what you've been seeing lately?
Sure. I would say, first of all, rates are very important, but they're very important right when you have a property under contract. So when we work with clients, we want to make sure they understand that to price a rate and lock in a rate only matters once you're under contract. As well, the last 4 months have been a lot of the Fed saying they're going to lower rates. So the market had baked in a lot of that rate cut. And so actually last week when the Fed had their meeting and they cut rates, mortgage rates went up a little bit simply because the way bonds get priced and the way the market operates, it didn't translate immediately into an additional rate drop for mortgages. However, the last thing I will say is if you look at rates during an election year over a 6-month to 12-month to 18-month window, everything suggests that rates are going to continue to get better and move into what we think is a very healthy position, which would be somewhere between 4 and 6%. So if you're at that 5% range, that should be very effective.
Okay, very interesting. So let me just circle back a little bit because,
Sure.
We're in the real estate, in mortgage industry, so we understand, all of that. But I think for most of the audience, they might not really understand this concept of, the Fed dropping the rate and then in reality, the interest rate actually increased. So can you explain a little bit about the bond market and what's going on exactly here?
There's a relationship between the price of a bond and the actual rate that a bond generates. And so when rates drop, oftentimes prices go up. Mm-hmm. So the way that operates in the secondary markets behind the scenes when bonds are bought and sold has a separate impact. So when the market hears or believes that the Fed is going to make a move, and it's why the Federal Reserve comments are so important, they start pricing in what they anticipate happening. So in effect, the Fed rate drop had been already baked into the market. So once they made the announcement, then the pricing changed a little bit in the underlying bond markets that caused a slight increase in mortgage rates. Now that's why rates are important only in one single snapshot, but what's more important and what we think is actually the most important is looking at the trajectory over time. Rates are continuing to get better. We think in the next 6 to 12 months they're going to be favorable for buyers. We don't think that they'll ever get as good as they were before the pandemic and in 2019. That era we think has passed, but a healthy rate environment we think has been approaching for the last 6 months and will continue to get there.
Okay, you were talking a little bit about the election time. Is it historically when we approach an election period, rate have this tendency of going down? Is it something that we can really count on? It happen every time, or is it an exception?
Hold on, let me get the crystal ball. It's under here. It's under here somewhere.
I knew you kept it.
Yeah, we only bring it out for podcasts. As a general rule, election years are very good because both parties want to, really demonstrate how they're fighting for the economy and the population. So in general, we expect rates to continue to be better after the election. And like I said, in a 12-month trajectory, we think it'll be good. Election years are generally good for rates. However, there's lots happening in the world. We just don't know, and so
yeah, absolutely. I was talking earlier with your colleague off camera, and he was telling me that in the last few years, it happened only 2 times during election time where rates were actually going up and not down. So it's a possibility. We never know. As you say, we don't have any crystal ball, but there is good hope that rates are still going to.
The higher probability we expect rates to get better. And that ties into someone's strategy on how they're purchasing real estate, when they plan on buying, when they start working with a realtor is really tied to a larger strategy. Rates are just one piece. It's just one snapshot. So for example, loans that we did a year ago when rates were considerably higher, we're now in the process of refinancing those clients, because when they were making their decision to execute on a real estate strategy, the rates were in 8% range. So they moved forward with a strategy knowing that when rates improve, we'll simply refinance them into a lower rate and improve their position over time.
It makes perfect sense. I think we have this saying in real estate that you should marry the house and date the interest rate. And I think it really applies, especially
Can I keep
in
that?
today's market. You can reuse it. Especially in today's market, because I think I can get a much better deal to someone right now in the current market condition
Agreed.
than I could a year ago, and that I will probably be able to get 6 months from now when the interest rate go down. We're still historically with a very limited supply on the market, and I think a lot of people are on the fence right now. You're probably feeling it too in your industry. People don't really make a move because they expect the rate to go down, so they're still on the fence. Talking about that, what do you see happening right now in the market? Do you get a lot of requests still, or do you feel like most people are just waiting?
A lot of the work that we've done in the last 6 months has been to help clients evaluate their position and make sure they have a sound strategy. So one of the things that is a really good use of us as part of working with a realtor is to let us get engaged in a conversation and run numbers for you, do the analysis, make sure that your strategy is sound, and that way, before they come up with an exact price point, they have a really good sense of what's my cash flow going to look like, what am I planning on putting down, what are those trade-offs, and how can I execute well knowing exactly the numbers that I'm working with. We've done a lot of that in the last 6 months, and with the same expectation that election years are good years, the Fed is telegraphing that they're going to reduce rates. I think there's a lot of buyers based on our work that are very interested in starting to execute now that they're getting right into the election season.
Absolutely. Do you see a lot of refinancing coming up? Because I feel like there is an healthy mix between people that still got those 2-3% interest rate from a few months back, and they don't want to sell right now because it would be more expensive to buy something else. And at the same time, you have one that bought at 7% a few months ago, and those people are already expecting the rates to go down, and they're already looking to refinance. So do you already have those people coming in and kind of preparing this refinancing to come?
We have a few, and some depending on when they have their initial rate. We see some clients that it makes sense to refinance now. We see some clients that want to wait till the election. Mm-hmm. But I think, to your phrase, it's better to marry the house and date the rate.
Absolutely.
What we've come to realize is it might not be healthy if you have a 2 or 3% rate to cling to that rate and wait on doing something that serves your life or some initiative. We're seeing more and more of those people are they're just tired of waiting. They're all right, I have to do. I want to move to Florida. I want to do something, and I want to get going on my strategy. I think that they're getting more and more comfortable as rates come down, knowing that, okay, I have to let go of this. If I want to swim to that side of the pool, I have to let go of this side of the pool in order to get there. Yeah. And I think we're helping more clients actually make their way into that.
I think especially if it's a house that you're going to live in, it's not like a commercial property. It's not an investment where the rate is going to have a direct impact on your return on investment. It's a place where you're going to live, where your family is going to be. So I think you have to see things a little bit differently when it's going to be the place where you live. Yeah.
Even for an investment initiative, you have someone that might want to pull equity out of a home. We do a lot of advising on what's the right strategy if you own a home and you want to make an investment purchase or a second home purchase. Is it better to strip equity out and refinance? Typically, depending on the rate, that's where rate is very important. but we've seen other people that look at other options like a HELOC, a home equity line of credit, as a tool to help execute on a strategy. So again, those are great questions to just have a 10, 15-minute conversation and help them see clearly and get answers. And then that allows them to then come right back to you and work very effectively on a strategy.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's always a good time to have a conversation about mortgage and know your option. Every client situation is different, so that's where it comes at play to like work with an expert like you to understand their situation and give them options.
Agreed.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about more the investment side. I know that you guys are working in the private lending industry as well. So can we talk a little bit about that? Can you explain to us, in what kind of scenario can you guys be involved?
Well, just as a general concept, we've been doing private lending for almost 10 years. And I said this earlier too, before, it's a little like ordering off the menu, because if you think about someone that wants to use a long-term financing, and for whatever reason there's something in their strategy that needs to be addressed. It could be a tax issue, it could be a zoning issue on the property, it could be an improvement on the property. They want to really move forward and then get the property into position for permanent financing. We work very well in that environment because we've got mortgages available for permanent financing, but we also are happy to underwrite and evaluate and underwrite short-term loans, which becomes a very nice investment strategy for an investor, and it becomes a very nice short-term solution for a buyer who knows that when they're done doing whatever they need to do to position for permanent financing, we can be a natural exit out of that. So it's continued to grow for us, even though we don't advertise it. We just have a very nice group of people we work with.
Okay, that's very interesting. So it's more like a bridge loan kind of scenario.
Effectively, yeah. On the low side, 6 months. On the high side, 24 months. It average about 9 to 12 months.
Okay.
Duration.
Do you see a lot of flippers or developers? Like what is mostly your clientele on the lending side?
A little of both. It's sort of, most of our investors care a lot about a nice, consistent rate of return. So we don't see a lot of flipping just based upon our investment network. However, there's an appetite for flipping. There's an appetite for ground-up development. There's an appetite for someone that's actually going to do construction to permanent financing. Where that might be an 18-month window. So we're continuing to evaluate opportunities, and I mean our mantra is we just like to have a good, thoughtful 10-minute conversation to understand the situation, and then we can all decide what, everybody can see clearly.
Of course. And I think South Florida has been an extraordinary market in the last 10 years for fix and flip. It's a great area to be in business. Talking about that, what area do you guys cover? Do you stay focused here on this Boca del Rey market, or what do you go further than that?
As Let's Talk Mortgages, we're part of a national platform, so we can do mortgages in all 48 states. Our private lending initiatives are really based upon, we do primarily Florida, a little bit in Texas. We're very selective about that. Again, it's tied to sort of the situation and the investor and and how that looks from an opportunity. But most of our private work is done in Florida.
Okay.
And as you can imagine, right, there's been a huge population growth in Florida. It just continues to grow.
Yeah, it's a great market to be in. Can you tell us a bit more about, what is the perfect time for, prospective buyers, someone that wants to buy a house, to come and talk to you guys about the mortgage options?
Sure, and it comes up a lot because oftentimes people will start thinking about real estate. They'll contact a realtor. They'll start looking at opportunities, and they won't know how much they can spend or how the numbers apply to their strategy. So our recommendation is always the sequencing would be talk to a lender first, because our role in that is to simply take the guesswork out of the numbers and present options and help the borrower see clearly about what they can spend, how that impacts their cash flow, how they can effectively execute on what they want to accomplish with a real estate purchase. And once we do that work, then it makes complete sense to then transition over to a realtor, because your market expertise is very useful once they know exactly what they want to accomplish from a price point standpoint. oftentimes it just slows the process down if they talk to a realtor first and then have to come back and figure out what they can do from a pre-approval level. And that also works very well with cash buyers as well, simply because cash buyers are pulling money from an investment account or somewhere, and the question then becomes, what's the best use of cash so that you can optimize your real estate? And that's where just having a simple conversation with us first makes it a very easy next step to then go hunting with a realtor.
Absolutely, and it's something that we see happening very often. You know, we are receiving inquiries every day from buyers that don't really know what their options are. And so my first advice is always to go talk to a lending professional first, to know your option, know exactly what you're looking for. And once we have, you know, a more clearly defined budget, then we can go shopping and we can find some houses. But that would be the first step. And as far as cash buyers, I totally agree with that. I think sometimes people want to pay cash for a house because they can afford it. But if you look at the bigger picture, it might not be the best strategy for them. So it's always interesting to know your options. Maybe people don't know, but they have, you know, access to financing. So especially working with someone as creative as you, and you know, looking at the bigger picture and finding different options for them.
It's a productive conversation, even if they end up paying cash, because now you can have someone essentially give an opinion about, hey, here's some options. And the whole exercise for us is to present the most options to a buyer so that they can then go execute and get things done.
Absolutely. Can we talk for a minute about you know, foreign investors and foreign buyers? Because I know that it's always a complicated topic, very complicated to find some financing. We receive some phone calls from different countries. So I want to talk about two things. First of all, it's like the buyer that lives far away, let's say in Europe, and then the buyers from Canada, because I know the situation in Canada is slightly different. So let's talk about European buyers first to get started. What are their options today on the market if they're looking to acquire a house here in Florida?
Sure. So for a European buyer, that would be a foreign national mortgage. We utilize really just getting correspondence from their resources in Europe. So we just did an Italian national, and we needed a CPA, a letter from his CPA or tax professional. We needed a letter from his bank so that they can demonstrate he's got an account in good standing and has the funds to fund, and then a credit reference. So those are the primary ways that we use tools to underwrite a foreign national from any country.
Do you use tax return as well if it's from a different country, or not really?
It's difficult to do that. If they have an account here, or if they're paying taxes here, depending on their immigration status, that you know, then we can use that. But more often we use the tools from their country of origin to qualify for a loan. You know, most Europeans are coming here as a means of destination. Miami is one of the great global cities, I think. You know, I'm from Chicago, which is not one of the great global cities. Great city.
It's a beautiful city. I just think we have a much better weather around here. Like the lifestyle is different.
It's a very different lifestyle. It's like I say, it's why people look at Florida as a global destination.
Yeah.
Canadians are an interesting group because their desire is to purchase as an investment or a vacation home, but there's also a twinge of, you know, political risk. They're not. They're uncomfortable with the politics in Canada, and they want to have what we call a plan B, the ability to, if they had to go somewhere, they could come to Florida. So oftentimes we'll do foreign national loans for Canadian citizens, really as a backup plan in case they feel like they want to live here.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that for Canadians it's slightly different because you're able to use. They have the same basically credit score system and we have here in the US, so it's easier to finance someone from Canada than someone from a European.
It's easier to underwrite that loan. They get slightly better terms than they would if they were coming from another country because it's such a sister country to the US, and certainly we're just big advocates of people, Canadians moving here, because it gives them a great lifestyle and a good plan.
Of course, I heard, don't quote me on these stats because I don't know if it's accurate or not, but I heard one time that in the province of Quebec in Canada, almost 3 out of 4 people have either plans to retire in Florida or plans to have a second house in a second residence in Florida. So it's a huge part of, it's a cultural thing. Like you need to spend your winter in Florida.
Johan, you don't have to tell me. I'm a former professional hockey player, so
Okay.
there are more NHL alumni living in Florida than arguably any other state in the United States. So we very much enjoy the Canadian culture down here as an old hockey player. So.
All right, let's talk a little bit about this city of Delray Beach. You have this beautiful office that you just opened here in Delray. I know you've been here for a few years now. What do you think about the way the city is evolving? Like I remember I moved here 10 years ago, and I remember it was a completely different city. It was already starting to evolve in a right way, but it's completely different than what it was 10 years ago. So I'm very curious to have your take on that.
We probably have similar opinions because I think Delray Beach represents the sort of the best of all worlds. It's not as big as Boca Raton. It's certainly not West Palm Beach. It's not Fort Lauderdale. But it has all the amenities. You're close to the water. You've got great lifestyle. The restaurants and the nightlife that have come in the last 10 years have really just changed the landscape in Delray. So I think it's become an attractive destination for people who don't want to necessarily live in city living, but want to have a very nice downtown, a very nice access to the ocean, and good lifestyle. And then, you just have a variety of different luxurious clubs. And that's sort of the running joke is, well, Boca's wonderful, but Delray is like smaller and more of a hometown feel.
Absolutely. I think it really depends what you're looking for. In my first 7-8 years here in Florida, I really enjoy this country club style in Boca, gated communities, all of that. It was great. But I feel now I needed to get closer to more this small surf town kind of vibe. And coming from Europe, we're used to park your car somewhere and go for a walk, go grab a cafe, go to restaurants, have entertainment around you.
Yes.
And I feel this small area of Atlantic Avenue really feels like a European city. I know in Chicago you have a little bit of the same vibe in the downtown area. You can walk, you have restaurants, shops. That's not something very common here in Florida. In Boca, there is no downtown area really. So it's very nice about Delray to have this.
No, I think comparatively, I use Meisner Park as an example. Meisner's wonderful, right? But it's a more commercialized feel to Delray, which is more of a communal, smaller, more less commercialized, a little bit more, and that's maturing quickly. But in general, you can just have a very nice, quaint, intimate experience in downtown Delray, and really feel like you're away from an urban population.
Yeah, that's true. I think it's a great city to live in. I feel there is more of this community aspect to Delray that we might miss in some other area of Florida. Boca has changed a lot too. I feel in the last 10 years, it was more I would say an older demographic that was living in Boca, and now I feel I see new restaurants coming in, new shops coming in. There is people moving here.
Agreed.
I think probably this whole COVID era helped a lot because a lot of New Yorkers came here, a lot of people from Chicago, from a lot of places in the Midwest. So kind of a renewed, the population around here, and I think it's interesting. I think we're just seeing the beginning really because with all this migration coming from Florida, I don't see that stopping anytime soon. I feel people are still going to go to nice weather, and we're still going to go to places where we have tax benefits. So I don't know what's your opinion on that, but I feel South Florida is just at the beginning stage.
No, and to reinforce that, I think in the 10 years, I've been here 11, I fell in love with a single mom. It's a whole other story for another podcast. But in the 11 years, so in the similar time frame that you've been here, Florida has gone from a 1-season town to a 3-season town, And really with COVID and to a lesser degree the politics, Florida has become a 4-season state. So the whole, like it's particularly South Florida, it's a 4-season community now. There are people that live here year round. It's not just people that are coming here during during the winter months when they're retired. And that has created a much more vibrant and dynamic maturation and growth phase for both Delray, Boca, Pompano Beach is filling in, Hollywood, Fort Lauderdale, even going north, Lake Worth, and some of the neighborhoods between Lake Worth and West Palm. I think as from a real estate perspective, we are at the very beginning phase of a 4-season year-round real estate market, and that makes it certainly sets up for having good expertise down here when you're making decisions.
For sure, and I think Palm Beach County has a lot of things that are about to happen. You probably heard in the news that now they're calling West Palm Beach the future Silicon Valley of Florida because of everything happening over there.
Which a year ago they were talking about Miami that way, right?
Yeah, I feel a lot of cities are talking about becoming the next Silicon Valley, but there's a lot of things actually happening in West Palm, and I think it's a city that is set for very dramatic change in the coming years because it has been undeveloped compared to Broward County and Miami, and there's a lot of opportunities. I see on the residential side a lot of new developments happening. The entire City Place and downtown being completely redeveloped.
I agree.
There's probably a lot of.
So I'm interested in your opinion from a real estate perspective because Delray, the development has really been out. You see replacement homes going in, but there hasn't been a lot of vertical. Boca, by comparison, has gone vertical. West Palm Beach, I feel like there's a lot of high rises that are continuing to go. But
that's very interesting. So I think it's more a question of city planning. I think Boca and Delray wants to keep this smaller town kind of vibe. So I don't think we're ever going to see any high rise in downtown Delray.
Right.
It doesn't go with the image of the city that they want to plan. If you look at the development that we have here on Atlantic and Dixie, I think it's been in the works for years. Why? Because they wanted to make sure that it's something that matched the area perfectly. Right. So I don't think we're going to see any of that. West Palm Beach, on the other end, thanks to Related and all the work that they've been doing and all the real estate that we accumulated over the years, I think it's planned for becoming a smaller version of Miami. So I think two different topics. I think Delray and Boca are going to continue to grow and are going to continue to this effect of I don't know if we can call it gentrification, but urban renewal of houses, older houses being demolished, modern houses being built.
Yes.
We see a lot of spec house replacing those older Spanish architecture.
Yes.
And it's great. It's a great thing. So we're going to see more and more of that coming up. Boca, I think it's really going to be around this Federal Highway and Palmetto kind of area where we're going to see a little bit more taller building, but it's never going to be a downtown Miami or a downtown Fort Lauderdale. I don't think that's the way they picture it.
And in the western parts of the communities, you're seeing a lot of gated development, GL, Lennar.
It's a very interesting part because I feel, I used to live in West Boca, and I feel it's really where all the activity is happening. Why? Because as you said, if you want to build something in Boca del Rey now, you have to demolish an existing structure and rebuild on top. Now, out west, those developers like GL Homes they have bought those lands years and years ago, and it's been planned for development of this scale. Takes a lot of time, but the land is available there west. So everything new on the commercial side, on the residential side, is going to happen west.
Right, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
Well, and of course, as a last point, if you're thinking about South Florida, we do have the Stanley Cup in our possession this year. The Florida Panthers won the very first Stanley Cup. If you care about that, especially for Canadians, not a bad time to think about Florida because you'd be moving to where the Stanley Cup champions live.
That's interesting. I didn't
for
know,
a hockey guy.
I didn't know about that. I know a lot of people are actually following hockey. My son just started to play hockey.
There we go.
So it's
now it's fun.
It's very interesting. Last thing I want to touch on is this community aspect. We talked about the city, about Delray Beach, all the great things going on here. I know that you guys do a lot of things here in your office space. You're doing some events. You're trying to get the community together, and it's something that I care a lot about. So can you tell us a bit more? We have a lot of realtors watching us, so tell us a bit more about what's going on here.
Well, our philosophy, and I'm really parroting my partner John. When he bought this office and built it, our goal was to create more intentional community, because if you think about all the people that have moved from different parts of the country or the world to be in this area, it's important that we become a local community. So a lot of the events that we do, we built an office that's very easy to drop in, and please stop by anytime. We're across from the Seagate Hotel right in East Delray. But the intent was, let's make it really easy to have people come together and in groups and socialize. So we're expressing that in many different ways. We're doing realtor specific events where there's content for realtors who are continuing to increase and professionalize themselves. We do social events like the exercise, the fitness events we do on Saturday mornings with F45 Fitness. We just got approval. We're going to set up and do a 5K fun run, all with the intention of just please come together, get to know each other, because with all the population growth that's happened in the last 10 years, it's very important that we make this our community from all the different backgrounds that we come from. And I think that's a very good goal for us to carry. And it's been fun in business and fun personally to do that.
I think it's amazing, and I know we connect on this, community aspect, because we've both been working from home for a little bit. Yep. And I feel with COVID, it happened to a lot of people. They transition from being out there, being in office, having yep. coworkers around, to sitting at home, which is fun at the beginning for a few months, and then it starts to be. Right. I think we human beings need this social connection, and it's something that we've been missing. So it's great to get people together and network, and mortgage industry, real estate, it's a people business at the end of the day. So you need to be out there, you need to meet people. So,
I agree.
Yeah, that's a great thing. All right. Now, time to play basketball.
Time to play basketball.
How is he going to shoot? That's going to be a tricky one.
Well, you know what? We probably shouldn't try to do this, but since we just talked about community, then we can play a little basketball. And I'm not very good either, so.